everybody, and welcome into another episode of New England Sports Weekly. And sorry about the delay there, folks. I was having some audio trouble trying to get my mic to work, but we are up and running. If you're in the chat and you hear anything with the mic, just let me know, and I will definitely get back on top of that. But it seems to all be working. We're good to go, and we're ready to rock for this show. And so happy to be back. As some of you know, if you've been following my social media feed, I was out with COVID the last couple episodes, and my voice was absolutely shot last week after having laryngitis because of COVID. So it would not have been pretty last week if I had tried to do a show. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm going to have plenty of water available because you know what? I am going to be hoarse by the end of this. So it is going to be jam-packed, as you can see by the title of this show. It is the NFL season preview on today's episode of New England Sports Weekly. And we're not gonna fool around here. We're just gonna get into a lot of things that have been happening here around the NFL, and especially around with the New England Patriots as well. That's what we are. We're New England centric. But of course, it is one of the best times of the year, as it is NFL season getting ready to kick off tomorrow night with the defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams taking on the Buffalo Bills out in Los Angeles. And of course, we'll have a full slate of games on Sunday. And if you love baseball like I do, it's getting down towards the nitty gritty for the playoffs, although the Red Sox are pretty much out of it. So if you're a Red Sox fan, really not that exciting. But baseball wise, we got that going on. We're getting ready for the NBA and the NHL to come back here in October and November, respectively. So we're getting into all of the sports here as far as getting towards where they're all starting to collide. But again, it's the piece de resistance, or the main course, if you will, is the NFL. It is back, baby. It is back. We have real football to talk about, not preseason football. That's gone. We're here to talk regular season NFL football, all your Patriots, all the NFL, your MVPs, your Super Bowl winners, playoff picture, all of that. We're going to get into all of that here tonight. And we will start with our out of the box segment as we get ready for the show. Now, as you know, I wasn't here the last couple of weeks, so we'll have a bunch of different news here. But of course, the New England Patriots had to cut down their roster to 53. There were really no surprises here. Of course, the biggest news really of all was that they had to put their rookie second round pick Tyquan Thornton, who injured his collarbone. That was broken, so he is going to be out for a minimum 4 weeks, as he got put on the IR. And of course, he will have to miss a minimum of 4 weeks, although the original reports were 6 to 8 weeks. So he'll probably have another couple weeks after that. So we'll see him roughly, what would that be? Right in that stretch of the Bears and the Jets, and so kind of in that stretch there where they kind of get a little bit of a soft landing for him to come back. So he's going to be on the IR. The Patriots, because of that, obviously with all the rumors, innuendo, whatever you want to surround with Kendrick Bourne, he is still on the roster, as he was one of the picks to really click this year, but that really has not come to fruition, as there have been a lot of different things. He was speculated to be cut off the roster, but he's still here. So he did make the roster. But like I mentioned, there weren't a lot of any real surprises there. The only, I guess if you want to call it lukewarm, if that at all, the only thing that I was a little surprised at was Kevin Harris, one of their sixth round draft picks, running back, was cut, although he did come back in the practice squad. So again, nothing really there that you're shaking your head at. We knew Malcolm Butler was cut, and that wasn't really a surprise. So basically, it was all what you expected coming with this Patriots roster going into the season. Now, of course, we'll get into all their expectations, what to look forward to, what's going to happen with this team, because there's no shortage of topics to get into here with the Patriots. But that was really the big one there. Now, of course, across the rest of the NFL, it was Russell Wilson out in Denver who signed his massive extension that will take him to age 38, I believe now. That 5-6 year extension that's worth over $230 million, and 160 of it's guaranteed. So he's gotten a big payday. And of course, so he'll be sticking around for a while out there in Denver. So there was some big moves that have happened, but really there honestly there weren't too many surprises across the NFL when it came to cutting time, if you will, towards the end of training camp. But it'll definitely be interesting to see here across the league with a pretty good healthy slate of rosters to go by here. What's going to happen? And of course, there were a few quarterback competitions, if you will, that got named. Is the Seattle Seahawks ended up naming Geno Smith the starter. And in Pittsburgh, it is Mitch Trubisky for now. I thought maybe Kenny Pickett might have gotten that nod there as well. So that was one of the those were they're probably the biggest quarterback competitions or carousels that were abound as far as in the off season. And I mean, there really weren't any big time ones because Aaron Rodgers came back. He didn't get traded as far as creating the competition there. And then obviously Tom Brady retired, unretired, came back. So he's back in Tampa. So there's no competition down there. So really, there haven't been any really huge quarterback competitions out there, so to speak. Everything kind of got settled early on when it comes to the quarterback situation. Now, of course, one of the other big news pieces that did pop up in the right before the off season, and that was Brian Robinson, the running back for the Commanders, who is coming back from a gunshot wound, and he is off his crutches, and he may be back sooner than we all had thought here. So that was one of the other big things. So those are some of the big news and notes as we come back to the regular season. And of course, that will kick off tomorrow night. Now, as we look into the rest of the sports landscape here, as we're still in the out of the box segment, the Boston Red Sox are all but out of the playoff picture, but they did make one piece of news yesterday as they did hand out a 1-year, $10 million deal to Kike Hernandez. So he will be back in Boston one more year. Yay. Kike, he's back. Oh, they got a lot of work to do in the offseason. A lot of work. I mean, they bring back Devers, bring back Bogarts, add another power bat, either free agency or try to trade for one. Hopefully in the outfield. See how that goes. Definitely add to the pitching rotation. But one of the first shoes to drop came in the form of signing Kike Hernandez to a 1-year, $10 million deal. And they did call up one of their top prospects, right now ranked number 1 by RedSoxProspects.com and by Baseball America in their system. Although Marcelo Meyer is nipping right at his heels. That's how good he is at an early age. But Tristan Casas, who is the power hitting, slugging first baseman who can also pick it over at first, has come up and made his major league debut. And he is, so far, he's 2 for 12 in the big leagues. But last night did get his first ever major league home run. So he got that out of the way down in Tampa. He's a Florida native. And it was a strange scene as there was a Tampa Bay fan out there in right field, caught the ball. Well, not a Tampa Bay fan really, because if you watched it, underneath his Rays gear, which I don't know why you would want to go buy Rays gear, but whatever, that's another conversation for another day. He had a White Sox jersey on, and the saga for about like 5 innings, it seemed like, was him negotiating the ball back so that Cassius could get it, who, once he finally did, ended up giving it to his father. So a nice sentiment there, but it was just an odd kind of situation watching this fan just hold on to a rookie's first ever home run. It's not like it was the all-time record-breaking home run to break the all-time single season record, or the all-time career home run record, or something along those lines, or even like a club home run record. That was odd. But he ended up giving it out, and the guy that got it actually kind of looked a little bit like Ryan Brazier. They did a side-by-side of him on TV, and it was actually kind of funny looking at it. It's like it's a little bit of a clone, but the clone looked like he had been really enjoying not just one order of those chicken wings that got knocked over, but probably about 2 or 3 more before he grabbed it. But we don't judge here. So that was those are the 2 biggest pieces of news for the Boston Red Sox as we move towards the end of the season, mercifully for the Red Sox. Now, one piece of news here for the Boston Celtics, as I wasn't able to touch on this, is that Danilo Gallinari was playing in the FIBA International Tournament back in his home country, Italy. And there were so many conflicting reports out there of if it was season ending or just if he dodged a bullet there. But it is now been official that Danilo Gallinari is going to miss the season with an ACL injury. So what looked like for about like a 48 to 3-day window there where things were going so back and forth, they finally settled it down, and it has not been as good of news as we all hoped, as now it is Gallinari going to be out for the season, and he was the 3-point specialist that they were going to bring off the bench. So we'll see how they fill that. There have been some rumors maybe possibly Carmelo Anthony might come to town and be that 3-point shooter. So we'll see how that all goes here for the Boston Celtics and how they fill that missing hole that Gallinari will leave. So that is our out of the box segment, if you will. And remember, folks, if you'd love to be a sponsor of this segment, just hit me up on the socials or send me a message, hit up the email. I would be so happy to have a sponsor for this segment. No matter what it is, just hit me up and we'll get you sponsored here, and we'll get your products all over the channel. But now that I'm done begging for a sponsor here, we'll get into the main course here, as it is the NFL preview show, as we are just under 24 hours, about 23 hours and 20 minutes or whatever it is from kicking off the NFL season. Is the Bengals. It is the Los Angeles Rams against the Buffalo Bills in a juicy season opener matchup. So the NFL did pick it right here, as they have 2 of the best teams in football ready to kick things off tomorrow night. And then we'll get into the rest of the regular season Sunday afternoon through Sunday evening, and then of course finish it off with a Monday night showdown as well, with Russell Wilson going back to Seattle to take on his old squad in the Seahawks. So it'll be so good to have football back It will be so good. Now, of course, hitting close to home here is the New England Patriots as they look to get season number 2 under Mac Jones at center underway. And of course, there's been a lot going on with this team. Now, nothing bigger than what's happening with the offensive coordinator position. So many things are happening with this. Now, of course, we didn't know early on in this whole process, and I guess technically we still don't have a true answer, but there's a lot more light that's been shed because of the preseason and things that we've been able to see with our own eyes. But remember, just rewind the clock back to what was it, February, early March, when Josh McDaniels left town to go take the head coaching job for the Las Vegas Raiders, leaving the Patriots for his second time in his career, but this after having a very long stint after coming back in 2012. And of course, working all those years with Tom Brady as the OC. And then last year with his first year under Mac Jones. And Mac had a great year, threw for over 3,800 yards, had 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So as a rookie, he looked amazing. And at one point, he had the Patriots at a number 1 in this position to be a number 1 seed. So things were looking bright for the Patriots. But of course, now there's some uncertainty with the offense because now you don't have Josh McDaniels there anymore. You don't have Ivan Fears as your running back coach anymore. So now you're turning things over to some new faces or technically some older faces that are in new positions. And if you remember, things started early back in April, back in May, where we were all trying to figure out who is the offensive coordinator for this team. Is it Matt Patricia? Is it Joe Judge? And there was a early point where was it Nick Caley, the tight ends coach, who was the hot commodity there for God, I don't know, most of April, early May. And then a lot of things kind of flipped over to Judge and Patricia. So there was just a lot of speculation, but of course the whole process it was so disheartening because I am not the biggest fan of Matt Patricia, or neither am I the biggest fan of Joe Judge, because both of them are failed head coaches coming over to the offensive side of the ball, where Matt Patricia had a cup of coffee way back in 2005 when he was a peon in the Patriots coaching tree, when he was the gopher. And of course, with Joe Judge, before he took the job with the Giants, remember he was the special team / wide receivers coach here in New England. Now he was a great special teams coach, great at special teams. But when he took the job as wide receivers coach after Chad O'Shea left to go down to Miami in 2019 with Brian Flores, that's where Judge took up the role of wide receiver coach. And then, of course, there was all kinds of reports that he did not do a great job. He seemed to be kind of lost and over his head coaching the two positions, but yet somehow the Giants said, yeah, we'll take him as our head coach. I have no effing clue how they came to that decision that we want that boob as a head coach, but they did. And trust me, they regretted it, especially after last year where Daniel Jones and the Giants ran a quarterback sneak from their own, 39-yard line or own 15, whatever it was. And it was only, it was third down. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. So remember all through summer, this was the whole story. We didn't get any clarity. And then finally throughout training camp, we started to get a little bit more. And then come the preseason, we saw a lot more with Matt Patricia. So it looks as though Matt Patricia is the main guy, but still there's a little bit of doubt as to what if Judge's kind of what he's doing besides the quarterback's coach, because that's his quote unquote official title. He's not a coordinator, so he still gets his head coaching salary. And then Matt Patricia is the offensive assistant. So he's not the OC either. But it appears that Matt Patricia is going to be more or less the play caller for this offense. And it really, really, and trust me, I know a lot of you by now are probably sick of this conversation. You've been hearing it for months now, and we beat this dead horse into a dried up glue at this point. That's how bad it's been. But still, it is so important because this is the second year of Mac Jones. And this is one of the more important years of development besides the rookie year. This is kind of where you get to open things up to Mac and really let him take the reins. And I'm not saying that he's going to be all of a sudden he's going to be screwed and up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. I'm not going that far here, but of course, I don't care. If you give me a young Tom Brady, a young Joe Montana, a young Peyton Manning, those guys, obviously, they'll come out on the other side good. They'll still come out on the other side fine, but there comes a level of, all right, they're a superstar. They know what they're doing. They can get by. They're so good that they're still going to be a great player. But if you give them better coaching, instead of being only 20% above the rest of the competition, or 15, 20, whatever a numerical value that you want to give to them. If you give them a head coach, if you give them not just an offensive coordinator, if you give them a legitimate, good offensive coordinator that knows how to take advantage of their skills, then you'll see, all right, these guys are going to be 40%, 50% above the competition. It's going to raise, obviously, the level because you have somebody that's working with them in sync, working with them that knows what place to call in what situations. They're not just, all right, I like to run the football. I am going to run the football 50 times this game. Or no, I only like these 10 play calls. Or they don't go with what the quarterback is comfortable with. They don't know how to call the game flow. They have their set plan. They know what they like to do, but are they adaptable? Do they know how to overcome something in the moment? Do they have the balls to, when it's late in the game, things haven't been working, but you might not be completely comfortable with this, but you've worked on it and you've seen a few glimmers of hope. Do you have that intuition to know, okay, all right, I know Mac can run this play. I know the rest of the team can run this play, but am I just going to bang my head against the wall and just call what I want? So there's just a lack of confidence of what Matt Patricia brings to this table, because obviously we know how things not end well in Detroit for Patricia. Yeah, he had a few decent offense players. He had Joey, he had Galloway, not Galloway, Kenny Galladay. It was like a mishmash of like three different players that were going in my head. I'm sure you could hear the gear grinding on that one. But yeah, Kenny Galladay, he did bring him into the system. And of course, Joe Judge, who takes him and ruins him down in New York, and he's been absolutely nothing. So that was great for him, apparently. So I don't know what was happening there. It's now Brian Daboll is taking over in New York. But it just perplexes me why Belichick decided to go this route of putting Matt Patricia in that spot. And I know I know there are going to be those Patriot honks out there. Listen, obviously, I love the Patriots. You see it behind the wall. You see it here. You see it everywhere. I love the Patriots, but I mean, I'm not so blind to this that I'm just going to bury my head in the sand that, oh no, everything's going to be fine. In Belichick, we trust. No, 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 no. We have to hit the brakes on this one. This is where I got off the truck a long time ago, as far as way back in the spring, after they decided not to go get Billy O'Brien. Now, obviously, there's other factors that possibly could have gone into that. We don't know, but for me, what is just so upsetting in this whole situation is just you're taking an offense that looked like it was making some steps forward last year. You have a promising young second-year quarterback in Mac Jones, who surpassed my expectations and really looks like has he has command of the offense. He he has his trust in his teammates. He's shown that he's a good leader, and I love what he brings to the table. But it's just so frustrating to see what's happening here, why they decided to go this route and go with Matt Patricia. And of course, I know Belichick is there, and yes, he's definitely trust me, he's still going to be the head coach. He's still going to be the one that gets the final say in the situation. So we're not entirely screwed in the situation, but there's only so much that Bill Belichick himself can mask in this situation, that he can cover up for. Like, yes, I'm sure if he starts to see things going wrong with offensively, if he doesn't like how Matt Patricia is calling plays, I'm sure he's going to go over to Matt Patricia and be like, "What the F are you doing? All right, let me take over." Because remember, that's what happened. What was it, back in 2018, 2019, when it had to be 2019. Because Flores was the DC in 18. But the point being here is that, remember, in 2019, there was a time when the defense wasn't looking as great. I mean, remember that first 8 games was kind of they had their moments where they looked like the boogeyman, and then what happened is Belichick at a point where the defense started to sag a little bit, he came in, took over the play calling duties on defense, and he turned things around again towards the end of the season, somewhat. But the point here is that, yes, Belichick can do that offensively, but then how many other things is he going to neglect? This is why you have offensive and defensive coordinators, so that you can delegate and know that when the game is underway, that you don't have to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. You have a guy like back in the day with Josh McDaniels, or with Brian Flores, or with any of his other defensive coordinators that he's had over the year, although really he's kind of the mastermind defensively. But that's just a point there, is that he needs to be the one overseeing everything, making sure that everything's going right, and that he doesn't have to completely 100% take over the play calling duties. Yeah, obviously, if there are still going to be times where you, as the head coach, because you're the head coach, you veto. Oh, excuse me, folks. Oh, told you I'm going to have a lot of water tonight. But the point being here that Belichick, it has to be the overseer on this. That's why you have to have offensive and defensive coordinators that you trust. And right now, offensively, I just don't trust in Matt Patricia. Now, could we all be shocked in 3, 4, 5 weeks? Sure. Am I going to bet my house on it? Hell no. Hell no. I'll be living out on the street tomorrow if it's the way I think it's going to go. Now, like I said, I don't think this is going to be an absolute dumpster fire where we're going to be like a 0-17 team, or that we're going to be in competition for the first overall pick, anything like that. But man, there's just there because I think there'll be times, most likely during that stretch after week 4, after they're done with the Packers, which give me just a second here. So that's going to be the stretch where it starts. Oh boy. Where it starts with the Lions week 5, goes through the Browns, Bears, Jets. You mix in the Colts, which is a team that's going to be in the playoff mix. And then the Jets again in week 11. So you have a 6-week, 7-week stretch there where you can go, where you have a chance to go, 5-1 in that stretch between the Jets, the 2 Jets games, 1 Bear, Brown, and Lions game. Because remember, no Deshaun Watson for the Browns. So there's a chance there that in that section where obviously we might see, and again, maybe it might be a little bit of fool's gold because of obviously they're playing bad teams, kind of like what we saw last year. But at the same time, that maybe we do see some improvements. We see a stretch there where they look really good, but then again, we might. I don't think we're going to see like all season long. This is well-oiled machine. This is where probably these first 4 weeks it's going to look clunky. Even though I trust in Mac, I trust in Devontae Parker and in Kendrick Bourne, and obviously with Jacoby Myers and with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. Those 2 running backs, I love those 2 running backs. The wide receiver core it's not anything special, but it is a solid group of professionals. And obviously you have a young good quarterback in Mac Jones. So you have actually good pieces there. It's just it's just with the coordinator position. And on top of that, changing into some zone run plays, mix in, it's kind of that Shanahan, Sean McVay offense, kind of a little bit of hybrid of that they want to try to maybe morph into a little bit more of that. Now, obviously, they're going to have their base plays from over 20 plus years, 22 years worth of film and games. So they have all that they can fall back on. But still, this isn't just we're taking little pieces. It seems like they want to go more kind of a pretty good sized chunk of going to a lot of those plays. Now, obviously, Belichick's not going to be stupid. If it's not working, I think they'll probably go back to the well that works. But still, I don't think he's going to all of a sudden after 1 game abandon it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they incorporate this new offense, how the rest of his team goes, because besides the coordinator position, the other thing that scares me to death right now is the offensive line. Now, if you asked me back in April, I would have been like, yeah, this offensive line is the strength of this offense. They have good they have good pieces there. And of course, we know that they ended up trading away Shaq Mason. That created a hole. So they had to draft Cole Strange. And then now they flip-flop their left tackle and Isaiah Wynn over to right tackle. He's not happy about it. And Trent Brown got flipped from right to left tackle. Now he's not as happy because he's getting paid right tackle money, but he's playing the more usually higher paid position in left tackle with a right tackle salary. So it is all kinds of crazy right now. Now, of course, like we said, we thought this was going to be a strength of this offense. Now, they're still good players. Like I love David Andrews. I think when Trent Brown is healthy and motivated, he's a bulldozer. But that's always the problem is he's other than 2018, he never really stayed healthy. And when we saw out in Oakland and out in Vegas that when he got his money, he just wasn't motivated for those 2 years. So we'll see how things kind of go. And then, of course, you have a rookie in Cole Strange at guard. And now, and then obviously you have Michael Onwenu And I love, like I said, I love David Andrews. So there are question marks there. Now, obviously, there are guys in Trent Brown and Michael Onwenu who have shown that they can be very good tackles and guards in this league. But there are times where, due to injury or lack of effort, or just there have been some inconsistency. And in the case of Michael Onwenu, there's just been some inconsistencies. So if you can get the 2018 Trent Brown, or the 2020 Michael Onwenu, who looked like he was an absolute steal out of the 7th round, then you might have something. Then you might be able to mask a few things. But this is just where I am worried, because there have been times where, especially in the running game, where I thought the running game was really going to and it still could be a strength. Don't get me wrong, because Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris haven't regressed. If anything, Ramondre has really, really shot up as far as in his stock. Ramondre Stevenson just seems like he's going to be the next great thing here as far as at running backs with the Patriots. This is a guy that there's been a lot of reports out there that he could slide into being that number 1 back. And now with the retirement of James White before the first preseason game, he's going to get a lot more third down work, and he could just develop into a 3-down back at this point, because he has that skill set. He's a little bit bigger, and obviously Damian Harris is very physical. He got 15 touchdowns last year, but this is a backfield where Ramondre Stevenson is developing into a very, very good piece. Not just very good, but he could develop into a stud here. And then you have Damian Harris, who in his own right was close to 1,000 yards, had 15 touchdowns last year. So both of those backs are very, very capable. Now, obviously, Harris doesn't catch the ball as much as Ramondre does. So he's a little bit more kind of the old school back, but obviously but the problem with both of those guys is that the line during camp and during preseason, there have just been too many times where you see linebackers and defensive linemen just penetrate deep into the backfield, and they don't give enough time for Stevenson or Harris to get anything going, which I don't care who you are. You go out, you give me Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, whoever that is, they're going to get swallowed up behind the line. So you give me any of the elite backs out there, and they're still going to have a tough time with how this line is performing at the moment. So that's just those are my 2 big concerns heading into the season, because believe it or not, my biggest concern outside of the coaching issue, if you kind of want to put that aside with the offensive coordinator, but if you're talking like on the field with talent, probably my biggest concern coming into the season was going to be, how does this defense, especially the secondary and the lack of a true linebacking core, or like a really true linebacking core, how does this all mesh? But even sometimes in the preseason, they've looked better than expected, if we're going to be honest. So some of my biggest fears were really settled, if we're going to be honest. Well, I shouldn't say settled, but there are signs that this could maybe be lower down on the totem pole. So what we've seen out of Jack and Marcus Jones, those two, the 2 rookies there, they've actually shown some promise. And with Marcus Jones on the outside, and with Jack Jones on the outside, Marcus on playing the slot, and then put Jonathan Jones who on the outside. And then, well, obviously Jalen Mills is the quote unquote number one. So there's some promise there. Obviously, you don't have that big prototypical number one physical corner like you did with Stephon Gilmore, who you knew could just lock a guy down, or even last year with J.C. Jackson, who wasn't as locked down as Gilmore was in his prime. But you still had a number one corner over there, and J.C. Jackson was an absolute ball hawk. So, but the Jones brothers during the preseason, those two rookies, along with their veterans Jones brother, have actually all looked pretty good. Now, obviously, there are going to be times going up against guys like Devontae Adams when they have to play the Raiders, or when they have to play like this week when they have to play Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, where we'll see how those matchups go. Although with both of those guys being a little bit on the smaller side as far as Waddle. Waddle is what, 6'1", but Tyreek Hill is what, 5'9", 5'10". So he's a smaller little guy, or even I think he might be even smaller. That might be like 5'8", but he's a shorter little guy, but he's still an elite speed demon out there. And then, of course, you just go down through the list, and obviously they do have to play the Vikings and face Justin Jefferson, who is an absolute monster, and that's in week 12. So that'll be interesting to see how they kind of face when they have to go up against these number one alpha wide receivers like a Justin Jefferson. But they so far in the preseason, they've held their own, with the exception of the Raiders game where they had some bumps there. But they've actually looked pretty good. They've looked better than I thought they could. The defensive defensive line, that has looked pretty good through all camp and all preseason. And this is where a guy like Christian Barmore looks like he is going to develop into an absolute stud on the defensive line. They might have a game wrecker in Christian Barmore, which if he turns into that, because we already saw how good he was in his rookie season. If he takes it to the next level, and then you have a guy like Matthew Judon that, if he can stay healthy, stay consistent, because even though he played in all the second half, or at least most of the second half, because he had to miss a game or 2 games because of COVID, he was a guy that tailed off towards the end of the season. It looked like he was going to be in that 12, 15, 16 sack kind of area, but he tapered off a little bit. But he was playing like a man possessed in the first half of the season before COVID hit, and then dealing with whatever else he had. So it just sounds like from interviews, he's going to be ready to go. He's going to be back up and really focused on having that stamina and that endurance for the rest of this season. So it'll be interesting to definitely see how that all works out. But I really like what I see here, because you have Christian Barmore, you have Matthew Judon at outside linebacker / defensive end. He plays a little bit of both. Dietrich Wise is a solid player there. And then you have Devon Godchow, who, I know he kind of got a little bit full of himself there after Belichick called him one of the better defensive linemen in the league. So slowly roll a little bit, but still he's a solid piece to put besides Christian Barmore. So with Barmore getting more attention, obviously that gives Devon Godchow a little bit more freedom to roam with there. And so there are some good pieces there. Josh Uche has actually looked pretty good. Now, obviously, we all kind of fell for the hype last year, so I'm not going to go completely into craziness with Uche, but it looks like maybe he might have turned a corner here, and we actually might get some solid production out of Uche, who had 2-3 sacks here in the preseason. And obviously, it's one of the concerns still is going to be the linebacking core, but again, I think there will be enough kind of disruption and penetration coming from the defensive line and those outside linebackers, the outside guys, creating enough pressure, opening up holes where I think some of those younger, speedier linebackers like a Mac Wilson those type of guys. And obviously you have the stalwarts there and Juwan Bentley. They're all going to be they'll get some opportunities to make some plays because I think that defensive line and the outside, the edge rushers are going to create a little bit more space and a little bit more to roam with. So it might not be as big a detriment as we all thought that it might be heading into the season for the Patriots. Now, I know we talked about some of the negatives on offense, and I don't want to just completely just be negative on this Patriots offense because, like I said, there are some good things here heading into this season. And of course, that's going to be the obvious headline there is going to be Mac Jones. This is a guy that last year as a rookie threw for over 3,800 yards, had the 22 touchdowns, had the 13 picks. But this is a guy that looks like he shows he belongs in this league. Looks like he's a leader. Looks like he makes, for the most part, the right choices on the field. He's making the right decisions when to throw the ball, when to kind of hold it, when to get rid of it. All those cliches that we could kind of go over. But he really is that he's with the bright spots on this offense. And I'm excited to see what he brings in year number 2. So y'all remember, he was not my first pick that I wanted the Patriots to take last year in the 2021 draft, but I ate a bunch of crow, and I'm so happy that I did because it looks like they did find the future of this franchise at quarterback. So we'll see how this goes for Mac Jones because he doesn't have that one go-to game-breaking weapon like some of these guys have. He doesn't have a Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have a Cooper Kupp or a Jamar Chase. He doesn't have one of those guys that he can sit back and rely on. Now, he does have some solid weapons because they did get Devontae Parker, who back in 2019 did have a 1,200-yard campaign. So obviously, if they get a 1,200-yard campaign from him and he has those 8 to 9 touchdowns that he had that year, then of course, then we have something to talk about. Then we have a legitimate number 1 to talk about in this situation if that's what he's racking up. But obviously, the question with him has been health, staying on the field. He's kind of that physical, go get the ball type of guy that they thought they were going to have in N'Keal Harry, but never materialized. But again, he's still a little bit of an unknown, so you can't kind of put him in that category of any number 1 wide receiver. Obviously, you have Jacoby Myers, who is Mr. Dependable all day long. So he's one of those guys that you can really rely on to get you a first down, move the chains, be a possession guy. So we'll see how that goes for him. And Kendrick Bourne is kind of that X factor. And this year, it's more from the standpoint of how much he's going to play. Is he still in the doghouse? How's that going to unravel? Because after last year, he was the chic pick to get over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, be a breakout player with the Patriots, and be that guy that looks like he could add a little bit of explosion to this offense. But because remember last year he had 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. So it was a career year for him coming over to New England. But with some things that kind of happened, nothing wrong happened to Bourne. He did nothing wrong, but it just seems like, or nothing. It's not like he did anything legally wrong or anything like that, I should say. Now, we remember when he got into the fight at training camp with the Panthers, he got sent from practice. There were reports that you could hear Coach Belichick yelling at him, if you're not going to make plays, then get the F out of here, blah, blah, blah. So there was that altercation that he had, and just some other things that had kind of happened along the way where it kind of felt, and Kendrick Bourne didn't suit up to play that week against the Panthers. Didn't play. I think he played sparingly in that Raiders game. So there were just missed opportunities that he had during camp to kind of grow some more chemistry with Mac Jones. So that's going to be one for me, that because I was kind of banking on him taking another step forward. I was in that camp that he could potentially be a breakout here for the Patriots, get over that 1,000-yard mark, and really kind of be Mac's new go-to guy, the go-to weapon in as far as receivers go. But that I've kind of tampered those expectations. I've kind of put some more eggs into the basket of the Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers duo there being your two best go-to options. So we'll see how that one goes. But the one that I really actually got even more excited about than any of those was Tyquan Thornton, which for me I did a 180 because remember, if you flip back onto the episode back in April that we did around the draft, I was so pissed off that they took this guy in Tyquan Thornton who was a string bean. And yes, he ran so fast, but was he going to be able to adapt to the NFL? And it looked as though during training camp he was turning heads. Now, I'm not saying he was going to be the next coming at wide receiver, that he's going to be the next Randy Moss or he's going to be a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, those type of guys. I wasn't going to say he was going to be that, but it seemed like I got excited because they might have actually found an NFL caliber receiver in the second round that could actually contribute to this team. Now, the way I thought maybe this is a guy that could get 500, 600 yards as a rookie and get four touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, use that speed. They could use him in situations to kind of take the top off the defense. I know I hate throwing out those cliches at times, but really that's what he could come in and do as a rookie. But and he wasn't just a burner either. He was running pretty good routes. If you remember the first preseason game, Tyquan Thornton, and I obviously take it with a grain of salt because it was against the Twos, but he did make a good play in the back of the end zone where he was able to run kind of that back corner out route fade almost. And he was able to get off of his defender, run a pretty good route there, catch the touchdown. And this was a guy that I thought, okay, this is a guy that actually can run routes, has got good speed. They found a legitimate NFL receiver in the second round that might actually turn into something. And he's got speed. So this could actually be, I know we talk about the X factors a lot here, but this could actually be a true X factor for the Patriots. And I got excited here in this situation. But of course, then in the game against the Panthers, he has to leave because he ended up breaking the collarbone. So you kind of have to go back and say, is he a little small? Does he have to add some more weight moving forward here to that frame? But of course, there have been smaller guys like Deshaun Jackson has made it in the league. He was slight of frame. That's one of the guys that pops to mind right early. So we've seen it with some more slender guys. Now, obviously, Randy Moss, not as slender as Tyquan Thornton. And please, folks, I am not comparing him to Randy Moss. I'm not saying he's going to be the second best wide receiver all time. So cool your jets before you send me any of those messages or anything along those lines, because that's what I'm not saying that here. I'm just saying I'm getting a little excited here that he could be a good player. And I'm just saying that there are guys like Deshaun Jackson and Randy Moss who have slighter frames that have had long careers in the NFL. But he could use to add just a tiny bit more weight, because that's kind of like what guys like Randy Moss and Deshaun Jackson did, was add just a tiny bit more weight. Not so they're going to be this possession physical jump ball receiver. Well, the Randy Moss was a jump ball, but for a different reason, because he was called the freak. But you catch my drift. He's not going to be some big physical type of dude out there. He's not going to develop into DeAndre Hopkins out muscling people and getting the ball that way. But after he kind of left with it was a little disappointing. Now, obviously, he's on the short-term IR for 4 weeks with a designation to return. And the reports were 6 to 8 weeks, which again puts him in the range of somewhere between the Bears and one of those Jets games. So we'll see, or on the Colts game. So we'll see how things kind of fall for Tyquan Thornton. But And of course, the running backs for the Patriots. Well, I already talked about it a little bit, but Ramondre Stevenson, he's the guy that can get the 3-down work. He's a guy that I really love in this offense. So I think the offensive line can stabilize itself. And no, I'm not saying be the number one line. And if you can be like the 15th, 16th, 17th best line in the league, or even maybe 21st, 20th, you can improve. You can look better, which I'm not going to hold my breath on it. But if you can get some improvement with it, then I do like what I love these two running backs here for the Patriots. So I think they could become they have the potential to be a nice 1-2 punch with Ramondre Stevenson really taking over. And I think probably by week 5, week 6, he's going to be the number one back. I as much as I like Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson has the ability to catch the ball. He's got more explosion in his game. So this is a guy that could be a true 3-down back, which we haven't seen one of those in a while in New England. We'll see how that kind of shakes out. So we've talked about some of the positives, the negatives here with looking at the Patriots going into the season. So if we kind of put this all together, where does this land the Patriots as we look forward for the season? So for me, this is where I think they're going to be in the thick of that playoff race. They're going to be right there in the mix for a wild card spot, because we all know Buffalo is going to win this division. That's no secret. Because obviously the days of Tom Brady and the Patriots absolutely owning the AFC East and winning 18 titles out of 20 years that Brady and Belichick were here, those days are gone. So these are where the Patriots are fighting for a wild card spot, and unless something unforeseen happens, I'm not saying it can't, but still, this is where my honest opinion here is they're going to be in the mix for a wild card spot, but they end up missing out on the playoffs. They finish 9-8 on the season, just narrowly missing out by a victory, because I think if you get to 10-7, that gets you into the wild card. But I just think towards the end of the season, their schedule gets so tough here, because if you haven't seen the Patriots schedule, or if you haven't looked at it lately, the Thursday night game, actually, what is it? That's not, let me just make sure. Okay. Yeah, so the Patriots and Vikings are the Thursday night game on Thanksgiving. So it's going to be Patriots and Vikings for the Thursday night game, Thanksgiving night. So that's going to be an interesting one here. So that's where things kind of start to get interesting, is because they play the Vikings, then they get the Bills, the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Dolphins, and then the Bills again. So we're talking about, obviously the Bills have aspirations of not just making the playoffs, but being a Super Bowl contender. The Cardinals are in the mix for a playoff spot. Raiders are as well. We all know the Bengals last year made it to the Super Bowl, where the AFC's participants. So that's going to be a tough schedule. And don't discount the Vikings there, because they brought in Kevin O'Connell. So they could be one of those surprise teams in the NFC that might make a wild card spot there. But so we'll see how things obviously all shake out here for the Patriots. But again, I just have them missing out on the playoffs for the Patriots, and just being on the outside looking in. So it'll end up being a season of kind of some growing pains, some frustration, and some just misses there, where you're going to think about a couple games that could have got you into the playoffs, and you're just going to miss out. Because it's just hard for me with the dearth of talent that I should say that, not the dearth, but the plethora of talent that's in the AFC this year is just ridiculous. And we're getting to that here in just a second, previewing the league. But it's just going to be a lot to overcome, even with Mac Jones and Bill Belichick there, because this isn't the Tom Brady days where you can just pencil them in for minimum 10 wins and then, okay, who they're going to play in the championship. Otherwise, you're going to have to fight and scratch tooth and nail to get into the playoffs, let alone win the playoff game. So, as much as I would love to see that, as much as my heart wants to say take the Patriots for a wild card spot, my brain overruled me on this one and said that they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Which, like I said, it's not going to be a disappointing year like it was with Cam Newton back in 2020. Like I said, this is going to be come down right to the wire the last couple of weeks, but they'll end up missing out. So officially, I'm on the books with the Patriots missing out on a wild card spot. So I'll be happy to eat crow on this one again this year if that comes to fruition, which I hope I am wrong, and I hope they get a wild card spot. But as we're about to talk about, there's a lot of talent in the AFC. So here we go. We will go around the NFL. So time starting off with the division close to home here is the AFC East. Now, obviously, we all know the Buffalo Bills are going to win the AFC East. It's just a matter of by how many games at this point is Miami going to challenge them. Is New England or Miami going to be there to challenge them in the end? I think this is where Buffalo goes 13-4 on the season. They, in my opinion, they are the best team in the AFC this year. So they're gonna cruise to the AFC East title this year. And of course, you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Now the hot name there is Gabriel Davis. Remember, they added Von Miller. So they're loaded up defensively. Offensively, they're going to be scarier than ever. Of course, they did draft another running back as well. They took Dalvin Cook's brother, who's a promising young rookie. So we'll see how that all kind of turns out here for the Buffalo Bills. Of course, they did lose Brian Daboll. So that's be something to look out for to see if that does affect them. But I'm still no hesitation picking the Buffalo Bills to make it to the playoffs and represent the AFC East. Now, looking at the the AFC North, for me, this is a two-team race between the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. And I do not think the Bengals are a one-year fluke. I don't think this was just okay. Trust me, they have a young stud quarterback in Joe Burrow. They have arguably the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. You have Jamar Chase, who as a rookie had over 1,500 yards and had, 10 touchdowns on the season. So he was an absolute stud as a rookie, absolutely owned it as a rookie. And I'll tell you here in a second. 81 catches. Okay, so he was just shy of 1,500. 81 catches, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. 13 touchdowns as a rookie. So this is a man. That's a man child. He's an absolute beast out on the field. Then you have T. Higgins as your second wide receiver. And if you need that refresher on T. Higgins, remember last year, T. Higgins, 1 second, folks. Just had him. I just had T's. But T. Higgins, sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. But T. Higgins is a guy that remember last year, he it wasn't just the Jamar Chase show. It was T. Higgins actually in points of the season looked even more dominant than Jamar Chase, and that's saying something. And last year he had 74 catches, 1,091 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But remember, there was a section there towards the end of the season where T. Higgins looked like he was the favorite target for Joe Burrow. And this would be a guy that, if you didn't have Jamar Chase, would be the undisputed number one there in Cincinnati. And then remember, you have Ty Boyd, who's had a 1,000-yard campaign or two. So this is a receiving core that is absolutely loaded to bear with two guys that could be number ones on anybody's team and a nice number three complement in Boyd. And then, of course, you look at Joe Mixon, who isn't going to blow you away as far as being the number one overall running back in the NFL. But this is a guy that is 1,000-yard back. It's a guy that can catch the ball as well. So he's got some dual threat to him. And the line has gotten a little bit better for Joe Burrow. And it's just going to be a matter of that defense taking the next step. And for me, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to repeat as the AFC North champions. I just think Baltimore, for me, has a few question marks at wide receiver. Is Rashad Bateman truly going to step up at number one? There's still injury concerns with the running back core there. You still don't have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins ready to start. So you're leaning on Mike Evans and Kenyon Drake, who just got released from the Raiders. So those are two guys that you're looking at right now to kind of be your 1-2 punch at running back. So you to me, it's just there's too many question marks there. Now it's not me doubting Lamar Jackson. I actually like Lamar, but it's just that I just think there's too many question marks surrounding some of his weapons there. Now I think they will compete for a wild card that we'll get into here, but that's for me. That's going to be a it's going to be a tough division between those two duking it out. But this is where I think Cincinnati proves they're no fluke and takes home the AFC North title. Now let's go to the AFC South, where in this division, I think old Matt Ryan, old Matty Ice, now that he's in Indianapolis, this is where I think he's going to take this team to the playoffs and represent the AFC South, because he gets Michael Pittman, and this is an upgrade from Carson Wentz last year for the Colts. And I think Matt Ryan still has something left in that tank. He's got another good season or two to give, and he's surrounded by a good cast there in Michael Pittman. If Pascal and Parrish can stay healthy, you have some intriguing other pieces around him. Mo Alley Cox has been a solid tight end. And then obviously you have Jonathan Taylor, who was the best running back in football last year. And of course, now they have Naheem Hines, who's a pretty capable pass catching back there as well. And for me, why I take them over the Titans, who won it last year and were the number one seed, is just you traded away AJ Brown. You immediately brought in a rookie wide receiver to be your de facto number one, but then you did go and trade for Robert Woods, who I think is still a solid receiver, but he's not AJ Brown. He's a good receiver. And Traylon Burks, it just doesn't seem like right now, it doesn't seem like things are going his way at the moment. Now I know things could turn around in a heartbeat here for him if he's able to kind of get out there, be healthy, and get time in with Ryan Tannehill. But that's also the other thing is I'm not the biggest Ryan Tannehill fan. And now that you have Matt Ryan in your division, you have a legitimate former MVP, a guy that's taken the team to the Super Bowl. And like I said, this isn't just some washed up former MVP quarterback. This is a guy that I think still has enough left in the tank. So I just think the Colts are more well-rounded than are the Tennessee Titans, who for me have some question marks at wide receiver. Can Traylon Burks really be the next guy to step up? So I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts for the AFC North. Now we go out to the most intriguing division in all the football, and this is going to be the AFC West. Now in this case, we have a whole division that some people say could make the playoffs. Now, we'll see who does in my pick here, in my postseason picks. But as far as the division's concerned, I still can't pick against Patrick Mahomes because this is Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback in the game at the moment between him, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. So, excuse me, folks, kind of wearing out here. But I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I still think they still have Travis Kelce. You did go out and get Juju Smith-Schuster. You have some other weapons there, and it's just Patrick Mahomes is so good. I think it's still his division. It's going to be a tight race, though. It's not going to be a runaway like it has been previously. And then we have the so I think that it's going to be Kansas City's division to win, but of course you have a loaded Vegas Raiders team who went out and got Devontae Adams. They have Josh McDaniels out there. You have the Chargers who went out and got some free agent additions on defense. Our old friend in J.C. Jackson and out Khalil Mack. And then, of course, you have the Denver Broncos who went out and added Russell Wilson and, of course, give him that monster contract. So I still think it's going to be the Chiefs' division to win. Now, as I look at the playoff picture, remember there's going to be 3 wild card spots. So for this one, I will for the first overall wild card. This is where I am going to take the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson to be that to be the wild card, number 1 wild card winner. I mean, Russell Wilson with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, love it. That and then Javonte Williams at running back. I think they're going to be in for a treat here out in Denver. That's going to be a really good team to watch all year long. For the second wild card spot, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I think they do make the playoffs here as a wild card. And for the third and final spot, I'm going to give this to the Vegas Raiders. Now, this is where with the Vegas Raiders, I love the addition of bringing in Davante Adams, who wouldn't at slides Hunter Renfrow purely into the slot and not purely into the slot, but purely into the second, third option, depending on what happens with Darren Waller. So you're going to have games where they flip-flop as probably the second, third option, but Davante Adams is a stud, absolute stud. And I do like Derek Carr. I think he's a solid quarterback. So it's just going to be what's going to happen defensively with the Raiders. How are they going to be now? Obviously, this is a division that they're going to beat up on each other with their Chiefs and the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders. Now, for me, the one reason I can't go with the Chargers is that they're already dealing with injuries to J.C. Jackson, other key members of their team, and Brandon Staley to me is just he's made some decisions where it just makes me scratch my head. I just don't think he's ready for primetime coach. I think they need to get somebody else in there at head coach that can elevate the rest of the team, because we all know that excuse me, Justin Herbert is a special talent at quarterback. This has nothing to do with Justin Herbert himself. This has to do with the rest of his team around him. I think they're going to be contention for a wild card spot, but they're just going to miss out as well to some of their other brethren in that division. Now we swing over to the NFC here, and because I feel like I'm about that I'm dying here, we'll try to speed through this here, but this is where I am going to take in the NFC East. I know the chic pick has been the Philadelphia Eagles because they added A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith returning for a second year, Jalen Hurts. But this is where I still like the Dallas Cowboys because you have a veteran, really good quarterback in Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb is turning into your number one. Now, obviously, there are some concerns with the offensive line, but you do have two pretty good running backs. And I just, for me, it's more of I can't trust Philly because when I've tried to trust Philly in the past, they always break my heart. Or not my heart, but they always just break my trust here. I always pick them, and then something just happens where they catastrophically fail. Something happens, and it's just, I just, it's hard to trust Philly. So until they show me that they can be a good team under Jalen Hurts, which I think they're a good team. It's just I'm not ready to pick them to win the division. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys taking the NFC East in this particular matchup. And now we head over to the NFC North. And in this division, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. There we go. Maybe I won't die right now. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And I know, obviously, he lost Davante Adams in this situation. But I do still think they have an elite defense there in Green Bay. And I think there are going to be some intriguing pieces there, and mainly in Romeo Doubs might emerge. Christian Watson seems like he kind of was a disappearing act there during camp because of some injuries, but it sounds like lately that he's developing some chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. So I think you might not get the one receiver that just absolutely takes over for Davante Adams, but I think, well, maybe there might be. We'll just pay attention later, and you might see something here. But this is where I think you'll get some good efforts from some of these rookies and some of the other veterans that they brought in here with a mix of other guys. And I do love the Packers running back room in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. It's going to be a nice 1-2 punch with them because remember, A.J. Dillon has caught a lot of passes as well on his end of things. So I'm going to take the Packers. And then in the NFC South, I am going to go with Old Faithful here in Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. The New Orleans Saints might give them a run for their money. But yeah, sorry, I'm dying here, folks. Like I said, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Bucks and Old Faithful and Tom Brady. Obviously, I'm never going to pick against the GOAT in these situations. I mean, he's even with some of the question marks around the health of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and some of his weapons down there. It seems like Chris Godwin's going to be back and healthier sooner rather than later. Might even start this coming Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, it's Tom Brady as well with all the experience that he has. So well, that'll be interesting as well. But again, like I said, I think New Orleans might kind of surprise some people because you have Chris Olave, the rookie, who is very promising. I like him a lot. I really wanted the Patriots to get Olave, but that obviously didn't happen. And then you have Michael Thomas returning. You brought in Jarvis Landry. And then you have Alvin Kamara, who is Mr. Do-It-All at running back and is an absolute stud. So he will be – so that's a team that could make a little bit of noise. I don't know if they will get a playoff spot, but they will be they will make things interesting down there in the NFC South. And then finally, we will go to the NFC West. And obviously, we can't pick against the Los Angeles Rams because this isn't the same as it was last year where I thought they were as loaded because you don't have Russell Wilson in the West with the Seahawks. The 49ers, I still think are going to be a good team, but there's still question marks as to how good Trey Lance is. What can he be? So we'll see how that all unfolds. But I mean, you have the defending Super Bowl champions bringing in a guy in Allen Robinson, who I really love and is going to be a pretty good piece to have there still. I think he's going to be a better all-around wide receiver than Robert Woods was. He's going to be that perfect complement to Cooper Kupp, who had one of the best wide receiver seasons we've ever seen last year. Obviously, they're loaded offensively. You got Matthew Stafford coming back, and it looks as though maybe the elbow situation, although it's still there and it's still something to monitor, it might not be as bad as we thought. And then we also have a loaded defense with Aaron Donald, who is a generational player. We'll see. He's going to absolutely wreck house like he always does. So I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams to win the NFC West. Now, as far as the wild cards will go, this is where I am going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles. I know I couldn't trust them to win the division, but I think they're going to be talented enough where they grab a wild card spot. They get the number one seed in the wild card. And then as far as the last two wild card spots, I will go with the San Francisco 49ers. Regardless, if Trey Lance isn't there in the first couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, they did bring back Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, and obviously we all know Jimmy Garoppolo, where he does have a ceiling. He has a good enough floor, though, to where obviously he's taken a team, he's helped guide a team to a Super Bowl appearance. So we know he can do that. And he still has all those weapons there. So I think just because you have a capable backup that's done it before, performed in the playoffs, and say what you want about Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs. He still was there. He still was the starter. So we'll see how that all goes. But I still think even if things go real rough, you still have plenty of the season to go with Jimmy Garoppolo and get you into the wild card. And then I'm going to do it with the Arizona Cardinals as the final seed. I think it's going to be between them and the Minnesota Vikings to get one of those wild card spots, because I think with Kevin O'Connell taking over the head coaching gig there and opening things up and really, really opening up an offense that has some good pieces there in Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and obviously Dalvin Cook. There's some good pieces to like out there. But I just think Kyler Murray, with the rushing ability and with them getting Marquise Brown, a college teammate of Kyler's, and then getting even stronger in the run game with a full season of James Conner. I do like that team as last representative in the playoffs. Now, as far as how I think this is all going to shake out, I think we're going to end up seeing in the AFC Championship. I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills hosting, excuse me, they're going to be hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, and Buffalo will advance to the Super Bowl. I know that's kind of a chalk pick there. As much as I wanted to go with the Raiders or the Broncos in this case to kind of to move that far, I just think with how good Mahomes is, I just think he's gonna win out in this situation and move up to Buffalo. But this is the year of Josh Allen, so Josh Allen is going to take down the Kansas City Chiefs and move on to Super Bowl 56, which is out in Arizona. And then they will, in the NFC side of things, again, seems like another chalk pick here, but I mean, both of these teams are too good. I think we're going to see a rematch of the divisional round series in the NFC Championship. I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Bucks facing off against the Los Angeles Rams. This time around, I am going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to face the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 56. And I just want to see this just because as a Patriots fan, in all the years of Tom Brady in the division with the Patriots, just absolutely just seeing all the despair and the anguish, the sadness, the depression with Buffalo fans having to face Tom Brady all those years in the division and absolutely getting throttled in most of those occasions, minus a 31-0 beatdown when Drew Bledsoe in week 1 of 2003 by Drew Bledsoe. I excuse me. I like. I want to see this matchup so bad, just to kind of see them sweat bullets in this one, and I as much as I love Tom Brady, I'm not going to give him another Super Bowl victory. This is going to go to Buffalo. So Buffalo fans, I did torture you with kind of the build up there with with not Patriot, yeah, Patriots Bill Super Bowl, with the Bills and Bucks Super Bowl and your old nemesis and Tom Brady. And trust me, I'll be I'll be rooting for the Bucks in that one just for some chaos. But my brain is saying that this is Buffalo's year. This is the year Buffalo finally breaks through. You had 4 straight Super Bowl appearances. You could never pull it through, but Josh Allen in this offense finally brings you home a Lombardi, Buffalo, and you degenerate can go jump on all the tables and squirt ketchup and mustard all over that weird old guy that makes the grill stuff on his car hood and whatever Pinto Ron or whatever it is that they call up there. That you guys can go be all kinds of weird Bills Mafia and go celebrate that Super Bowl trophy because I'm going to hand it because that's my prediction. It's going to be Bills over Bucks in Super Bowl 56. And as we look at some of the hardware that's out on the landscape of the NFL, if I am going to take a NFL MVP this season, excuse me. So this one was a really tough decision here because it came down to a few different guys, a few different quarterbacks in some situations, but this is where I think Josh Allen just has an outstanding year and really to go with my theme of Buffalo, I think Josh Allen takes home the hardware this year and dethrones some guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, some of the usual suspects that he's gonna get by those guys and we're going to see Josh Allen take home that MVP trophy, because I think we're going to see a season here where he has over 450 yards rushing. He's going to have over 4,300, 4,400 passing yards, and he's going to have over 40 touchdowns. This is just, and I think you throw in about 6 rushing touchdowns. So this is going to be a guy that's going to have an absolute monster season for the Bills, and he's going to take home the hardware as the NFL MVP. And as far as my offensive player of the year, this goes to one of my favorite wide receivers to watch. And yeah, it might have a little something to do with I have him on a fair chunk of my fantasy teams, and he's in my in definitely in my important leagues. In my most important league, my keeper league that I have, he's my favorite player to watch out in the league outside of any Patriots players, and Justin Jefferson. And I'm going to take Justin Jefferson as the offensive player of the year. I don't know if he goes absolutely nuclear like Cooper Kupp did last year, but I think this is where we see a guy that has somewhere between 17 to 1,800 yards, has 17 touchdowns on the year. This is an absolute stud at wide receiver. And I think I know most of the time you see like a dual threat quarterback, you might see a running back there, but this is where, like last year, where we saw Cooper Kupp take it home. This is where Justin Jefferson is going to have a special season. I think he's going to take home the offensive player of the year. And then over on excuse me, I'm struggling here, but it's gonna and I'm gonna make it through. We'll make it through, folks. We only got a few more segments left. So as far as with the offensive rookie of the defensive player of the year, I mean, this one's kind of a give me, but I mean, he's such a good player. It's going to be Aaron Donald. He's going to get what this would be his 4th defensive player of the year award. He's just that good. But I mean, what hasn't been said about Aaron Donald that already hasn't so far in his career? He's just so good. And I think because he ends up driving, he's one of the driving forces of that team. He's going to get another defensive player of the year award, where I think he's going to have like a 15 sack season, and coming from a defensive tackle, that's amazing. So this is a guy that just deserves all the praise and all the accolades. Now, as far as offensive rookie of the year, this one is going to be a little I might say a little bit of a reach, but I really like him. And this is a guy that is kind of gained some chemistry with a veteran quarterback here, and that is going to be Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is obviously there is a void of targets out in Green Bay. Somebody has to come in and take them. Now, I don't think we're going to see like Doubs just absolutely take all of Devontae Adams' share, but this is a rookie This is a rookie in a perfect position with one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game in Aaron Rodgers. Now, where you want to rank him, that's up to you. But I'm just saying, in the pantheon, he is. And this is where I think Romeo Doubs has shown he's had really good chemistry throughout camp. Even if he battles through a few drops, I think this is a year where Aaron Rodgers knows that there's some that he obviously doesn't have like the choice to go back to Adams. And but the rookies, it seems like he's willing to work with them, and he's even said glowing things about him. Now, I know Christian Watson has started to come back from injury, and there might be some thoughts here that he might get a lot of the share, but I just think there's way too much time that was spent with Romeo Doubs this offseason. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take Romeo Doubs as the offensive rookie of the year for the Green Bay Packers, where I think he will shock a lot of people, and I think he's going to have 1,100 yards and have over 8 touchdowns. I think we're going to see, listen, there haven't been a lot. It's taken a long time for receivers to get to that 1,000-yard mark with Rodgers. It took 4 years for Adams, but guess what? There's not a lot of choice here for Rodgers this year. Because, I mean, you have Alan Lazard. Okay, he's decent. And you have some other prospects there, but I'm not as happy with what's there as far as what excuse me, as far as the rest of the options in Green Bay. I'm not a big Sammy Watkins fan. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But I think this is where Romeo Doubs kind of comes out as one of the later, like, what was he, third, fourth round pick. And he's gonna win that offensive rookie of the year. Now I think he's gonna have some strong competition this year because I almost went with Chris Olave down in New Orleans. I really, really love Chris Olave, but I just think this is where, because Romeo Doubs is on the Green Bay Packers, on that storied franchise, and playing with Aaron Rodgers, and if he can be one of the first rookies to work with Rodgers and have 1,000 yards, I think that goes a long way to showing how special this kid is. Now, for the excuse me, folks, my apologies. It has been one of those days where it's just been it's been kind of hard to get over COVID here. Now, as far as the defensive rookie of the year, now this one has been a little bit tougher for me to kind of really kind of to figure this one out, because there wasn't like that really, really outstanding rookie that I was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one that I think is going to just run away with that award this year. There are some good ones there, because trust me, I love Nakobe Dean with the Eagles. Sauce Gardner was on that list. I love Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions. Devin Lloyd with the Jaguars. There were a lot of the guys, but it's not like some of the years past where there's that one guy. I'm like, yep, this is going to be the guy that gets Defensive Player of the Year. This is the one that I am going to go to bat for. But for me, I am going to go with this. Again, this is really hard. I'm going to go with Sauce Gardner with the Jets, and I know, you picked a Jets player, but for me, it's just I really love Sauce Gardner coming out of Cincinnati, and he was one of those guys. Obviously, I knew the Patriots probably weren't going to get him, but I think this is going to be a true number one corner. And the Jets do have they have gotten some good corners in the past. Obviously, we know they took Terrell Revis in 2007. They've had some good ones as well along the way. So they have shown the tendency to take some good corners. Now the rest of the roster, they could use some help drafting. But this is where I do think Sauce Gardner will take this one home. So that is your wrap for the NFL preview show, for the NFL preview portion of this. Now, so I will give you a quick one big bet here, is that we're going to try to every week get you a betting one bet, as well as some fantasy help here. So with the bet, we're going to look at one game here that could get you that you could get some good odds on and end up getting a decent chunk of cash. So my pick for this week, for week number 1, excuse me, I am going to take the I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs and Arizona Cardinals game. And for this one, excuse me, and I am going the route of a same game parlay. I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals, who are plus 200, and I'm taking the over of 54 points. So obviously, I like you said, I picked the Chiefs to go to the AFC Championship to eventually lose to the Bills, but I think that, and obviously, I took Arizona to make the playoffs as well. So this is one of those games where Arizona is a good team. So I like that plus 200 in this situation because you get some decent odds, and obviously that I think this is gonna go over because of both of these teams, even though Kansas City doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore, both of these, but Arizona has more than enough weapons as well. So I think this could be one of those high scoring games. And then just to spice things up in this same game parlay, I did throw in James Conner to get a touchdown at any time. So that gives you a plus 625 on your odds. So if you throw down $10, that is a winning bet of $72.50. And if you want to spice things up just a little bit more and put $20 down on that bet, then you would end up walking away with $145 even. So you could make some decent cash because that's actually a game that I would actually feel halfway decent in taking the Cardinals in that game. So you could actually make some decent money on that Cardinals game. So that's our one big bet for this week. And then we'll wrap things up here with since we're not into the actual, since we have till tomorrow night where fantasy games will get underway. We'll this first week will be those fantasy sleepers that you might want to stash. So those stash plays. Now, obviously, I just talked about one here with the Green Bay Packers, and that my first one is going to be Romeo Doubs because I think he's a guy that there was hype a lot about him early in camp and through the first couple of weeks, and obviously now Christian Watson. There's been news that he might be healthy, and of course he was the second round pick, so he's more highly thought of. So some people might go in that direction of Christian Watson, but again, I have more confidence in Romeo Doubs. So he's a guy that, like I said, there's a lot of targets that have been vacated in that Packers offense. So I would go with Romeo Doubs in this situation. And then my second pick is going to be KJ Hamler, the third string wide receiver for the for the Denver Broncos. Now remember, these are some stash players because these are some sleeper picks that really, we're not talking about the guys that are going to be obvious studs here. These are ones that are sleepers. So in this case, with KJ Hamler, remember there's no more Tim Patrick, and we don't know just how good Jerry Jeudy is going to be with Russell Wilson. Is he going to be the Tyler Lockett of this offense? Or remember, because KJ Hamler in the same draft that they took Jerry Jeudy was a second round pick. So he has talent, he has speed. So for me, KJ Hamler, this is a guy that if Jerry Jeudy falters or if there's an injury, because remember, there's no Tim Patrick for the rest of this year. We're talking about a guy that does have talent here in KJ Hamler, so he could step up and be the second wide receiver if between Jeudy or Sutton, if there's any issue there, or if one of them underperforms, because now you have a legitimate quarterback in Russell Wilson. So we could see maybe KJ Hamler fill in. So that this would be a guy to kind of keep an eye on and add to your bench if you need some depth. Now, obviously, we've gone wide receiver heavy here in this situation, but I also am a fan, of Rashad White, the rookie running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because he is unofficially listed as the number 2 running back behind Leonard Fournette. And there's been a little bit of rumblings. There's nothing official that the Bucs might want to reduce some of Leonard Fournette's workload, which if that happens, then you get Rashad White, who would get more of those opportunities. And obviously, this is a really good offense. So remember, this is a sleeper pick. And Leonard Fournette hasn't had the cleanest bill of health when it comes to his injury history. So there could be some opportunities to get Rachaad White onto your roster and stash him just in case there's any injury there to Leonard Fournette, or if they do reduce some of Fournette's role. So that could be because remember, we're talking about your sleeper picks. So a lot of those running backs have kind of been picked through. So if he's still sitting there, that's a guy to kind of stash because again, loaded offense, rumors that maybe Leonard Fournette might lose a little bit of, they might try to reduce his workload there. So and Rachaad White is that second player. All right. So that was a very, very full show. And I do apologize, folks, if you had to suffer through some of the raspiness here towards the end, is because been talking on the phone all day, plus still getting over COVID. So it's been a hell of a battle. But I'm glad that you got all stick through if you were listening here tonight or if you were listening on the podcast. I'm so glad you did. And remember that if you want to watch live, we're here every Wednesday night when I don't have COVID. I'm here every Wednesday night in the podcast. You can catch the live stream at 8 o'clock as long as my microphone doesn't want to crap the bed. We start at 8 o'clock. You can always send in your live comments on the chat, and you can always remember to follow the show. Remember to search on YouTube at New England, or you search New England Sports Weekly. Hit the like and subscribe right down on the channel right there. Hit the bell for any notifications. And as well, you can always follow me on social media at Sean_Met28. That's the same for Instagram and for Twitter for my personal. And then, of course, you can follow the show account at Twitter at NE Sports Weekly and send me any of on any of the platforms, be it live or be it on the social media. Send me any of your questions, any comments, concerns, whatever it is. Love interaction with the show. It makes me happy anytime I get those questions that come in and try to answer those live on the show for you each week. And always remember, if you can't make it to the live stream, don't fear. You can always catch the podcast on your podcast channel of choice. It's available on Spotify and SoundCloud. You can search New England Sports Weekly there, and you can get the latest episode each and every week. And that's usually up and available usually Thursday, sometime early Thursday morning, because it takes a little bit of time for it to get over to Spotify and SoundCloud, but it will be there and you can listen to it on your morning jog or right on your drive into work or having breakfast tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed this week. We will be back next week to recap week number 1 for the New England Patriots in the NFL. And obviously, we'll keep you up to date with anything that happens with the Red Sox, Patriots, or Red Sox, Bruins, or Celtics as well. But of course, the NFL is back, baby, and we are gonna be we're gonna be so drunk on football on this Sunday. It is not even gonna be funny. And we'll be here next week to recap it all for you. All right, everybody. Well, you have a good rest of your week.